All right, here we go. Welcome in. This is pretty much a live instant reaction podcast episode after Iowa's 27-24 disappointing loss to Missouri. I assure you, even though this probably won't come out until later tonight or maybe tomorrow morning, we are recording this about 5 minutes after the game. But Tyler, we could start with a bunch of different things. We could start with defense, start with offense. What was just kind of your first summary of this game?
Yeah, I wrote this down right after the game ended, Collin. A tale of two halves has been the theme all year with this team. And we have seen this countless time and time again with this team where we look like a completely different football team, whether it's the first half, like the Iowa State game where we came out like this game, played really well in the second half, shit the bed, to put it mildly. And then we've seen it like against Minnesota where we look lifeless and we look like we're going to get dominated. And all of a sudden in the second half, we turn it on and beat the brakes off of them, right? It's a tale of two halves. We have not been able to put a full 60 minutes of football, complementary football, together for a complete game very often this season. And once again, comes back to bite us. That's where I initially started, Collin. Where like I said, I wanted to go first. But the other thing is, just because it's the last play of the game, what the hell was that, man? That's also where I wanted to go with it. It's like, what are we doing on that last play to end the game?
Just the last 4 minutes of the ending of that game, right? Where we get the ball and we end up not getting a first down, so we have to punt it, which at that point I was kind of like, I don't know if we punt it here because we probably won't get the ball back. We did get the ball back, and it was a shank punt. And so you got the ball where really all you needed, you needed was 20 yards to get a field goal.
Yep.
But no, instead we take a sack, which we'll get into Sullivan, but then take a sack, and then TJ Washington gets a nice little yardage, and then of course Jacob Gill catches that ball, which I love how he catches that ball, but he doesn't catch the ball on the last drive to get the first down. And then sets up that 4th and 1, and I don't know what Sullivan was doing. I know the guy kind of jumped over, and I think he was a little hesitant. Speaking of hesitant, what the hell happened to Sullivan in the second half? Because you went from this guy, I'm feeling good about next year, this guy being our quarterback, if this is the way he's going to play. And he looked like God out there, right? Just going all over the field. He only had 88 yards passing, but all his throws were consistent. They were accurate.
He was accurate.
That first long ball that he had, yes. And he was running all over them. That highlight reel where he almost scored the touchdown. And then all of a sudden in the second half, it looked like the UCLA game. And it was after that big hit that he took at the 1 yard line, it was as if it was a completely different person out there. I don't know if did he get injured again? Did he maybe get a concussion from that? Who knows? Because he literally looked like a completely different player. He just looked hesitant. He looked like he didn't know what the hell he was doing. How you go from playing like that in the first half to that in the second half.
Yeah, he's a completely different quarterback, and again, just the team itself. It was just if you would have told me in the first half, we put up 21 points, we have a kickoff return for a touchdown.
Yeah,
we come out in the third quarter and get a quick, a field goal. Like to have a touchdown there, but of course settle for a field goal. You're up 24-14 at that point. Now, I know the defense wasn't playing good in the first half, so I don't want to sit up here and say that was an easy win. But if you would have told me all those things happened, I feel pretty damn good about this team getting the victory against Missouri. But we literally called each other at halftime, and we were discussing about how awesome this offense was. How, like you just mentioned, excited we are for the future. If you're going to tell me this is what Brenden Sullivan looks like, then we don't need another quarterback in the transfer portal. He's our guy. And we jumped the gun on that because I don't know what happened either. He made the incredible scramble, ran around for 50 yards. I know it was only a 7-yard game, but ran all the way to his left, ran all the way back around to his right, got stopped short, took a giant hit, and like you just said, similar to the UCLA game, takes a giant hit, and it's almost like he turns into a completely just
shell of himself
incapable quarterback.
And then his rushing ability was non-existent in the second half either. I thought Tim Lester, and I'm going to pop up the drive chart here. The first half, man, you could not ask for a better start. 8 plays, 70 yards, and then a little bit later, 11 plays, 90 yards. I mean, we only had 3 possessions in the first half, which I didn't even realize until now, but we capitalized on those possessions because the defense was sucking, and we'll get into the defense here in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we were talking at half. It's like we were feeling good, right? Like we were getting some of the wide receivers the ball. I saw Jerry Bowie had 3 catches in the first half. He had 6 catches all year coming into the game. So we were getting guys involved. TJ Washington scores a touchdown. We're trying to get him involved.
Yep.
The running backs are looking pretty good without Caleb Johnson. And really, they looked good all game. And we'll get into that too. But, and we're sitting here like, man, like, yeah, if Sullivan can play like this, like, I feel good moving forward. But what did I tell you at half? I said, there must be something, because if they're really wanting to get another quarterback, he must be incredibly like inconsistent, like in practice or something. Like he just must not, there must be something that like the coaches just do not like from Sullivan. Like he's a decent quarterback, but there must be something. Did you not remember when I said that?
Yeah.
And then
you did. We were talking on the phone and you had mentioned, you're like, if he had looked like what he did in the first half all year, we wouldn't be going out and getting another quarterback. Like, we wouldn't be feeling the need to do that. Yeah.
You saw in the second half, maybe that is probably the reason why they are wanting to get a guy like Bo or a Mark Gronkowski from South Dakota State, right? Because, this is kind of what maybe you get from Sullivan, right? We saw it in the UCLA game, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. You start off good, you get hit once, and then it's like you completely get rattled. And it's like, you can't do that, man. Like you got to step back up. And you just got to regroup. Like that interception today, like that was horrible. Like, what are you doing?
I just wonder if he just doesn't have like a short-term memory, right? Like he makes a bad play, he gets hit hard, and then he throws a pick, and it's all spiraling out of control. Like he can't get the train back on the tracks, and instead it's a freaking derailment to in the worst way. And 3 points in the second half, I mean, like you're not going to win many games like that. You're just not in college football when offenses, and Missouri is a good team. Like Missouri has a great offense. Like I know they didn't have their star receiver, but they had their quarterback who's been in 4 bowl games. I mean, and
they have athletes around the field. Yeah,
really all day. So yeah, they do. It's an SEC program. They have plenty of talent. So, I mean, you score 3 points in the second half, and we looked the way that we did, and specifically Sullivan, confusing. But I will say this, and we'll talk about it, and maybe we'll talk about it right now. I don't know why we got away from running the football when it worked all day. Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up, because there was a few times like a 3rd and 2, and it's like, dude, run the football. Like, run the football. Do a read option or something, right?
Kamari Moulton, 14 carries, 96 yards, 6.9 yards a carry. Jazzy Patterson, 9 carries, 74 yards, 8.2 yards a carry. Run the football. And like you said, situationally, we got into these short yardage situations, and we passed it, or we tried to, like Sullivan tried to scrape, or he'd take a sack. And it's like, no, why? Do what's working. I understand. I loved Sullivan passing. I love the fact that, you have him, especially at the beginning of the game, looking the way that he did. But that second half was not the same Sullivan.
There was one play where I think it was on 3rd down, maybe, and maybe I think it was actually the interception. He had Luke Lachey wide open in the middle of the field, and that's like going back to like I just think he was just like getting to the point where he was getting so rattled. And I brought this up on the last podcast when we were talking about Bo, and I said, the thing that kind of scares me about Sullivan is he could never solidify himself as a starter at Northwestern, right? And Northwestern isn't some powerhouse. Like, if you were good enough, like if you were really good, you would be the solidified starter at Northwestern. You're not going up against like a bunch of 5-star athletes at Northwestern. And he couldn't do that there. And so he transfers out. And that's what worries me a little bit. It's because it's like, okay, yeah, like he is pretty athletic, and he makes some flashy plays. There's no doubt about it. Like what we saw there at the end of the second quarter where he made that. I mean, when's the last time we have seen that out of an Iowa quarterback? CJ Beathard, Brad Banks, right? Like it's been a while, so it's fun. But there's definitely some negatives, and we saw that today. It's like he can't overcome, when things get bad, and we've seen it now in a few games.
And you just brought up an excellent point about that, and I'm just thinking about it now. It's like I wonder too, like us fans, right? We've seen such bad quarterback play the last how many years that we finally see a guy like Sullivan who can make some of these splashy plays like you're talking, and we're like, oh my God, he's the savior. And we're seeing now that over the course of a 60-minute game, he, like to your point, makes those splashy plays, and we get so enamored with that. But then he also makes some very questionable decisions as well. And I think we almost lose sight of that because we've seen it. We've been so bad at the quarterback. We're like, oh my God, this guy can run and he can do all these crazy things. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, there's a reason he probably didn't start from the beginning, maybe.
One last thing too, like going back to that first drive of the game where I just loved everything about that drive. We were doing RPOs, we were doing motions, but we also did a play that we threw the ball down the field for 30, 40 yards. We did not see that the rest of the game. Now, maybe there were some plays that were designed to do that, and maybe Sullivan just didn't throw it, but why we did that the first drive and then not even attempt a long ball. And when I say long ball, it doesn't have to be, what Missouri did, a 50-yard bomb down the field, a 30-yard play, a 25-yard seam down the middle of the field, like something. We didn't do any of that, the rest of the game. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. Let's switch to the defense now, because I really thought, not going to lie, like pretty much the entire game, even when, in the third quarter, when the offense was starting to struggle a little bit, but we're still up 24-14. Like the offense is doing what they need to do. I really thought that's what we were going to start with, right? Because the defense was just brutal, especially in the secondary, right? I think the D-line did okay. Like we got a decent amount of pressure here or there. Quarterback contain was a little iffy, but it was mainly the secondary. But really my biggest thing was they had 4 drives that they scored on. So they had a touchdown, a field goal. And all 4 of those drives, they had a 2nd and 16, and they converted for a first down. They ended up scoring. Then they had another drive, 2nd and 16. They ended up getting the first down and then scoring. Then they had one, I had it here. What was it? Oh, 2nd and 28. 2nd and 28. And
that's
they convert
the one,
that.
Collin.
Yep.
Because of a fucking penalty.
Yep.
A late hit out of bounds penalty, which I was going to bring up really quick. Go ahead.
Well, even like if he doesn't get the late hit though, like they still almost like, I don't know if you like saw, like they actually got pretty close to getting like the first down because it was that screen play. And like they were probably 5, 7, 8 yards away. Like where like I was kind of like, okay, are they going to maybe go for this? And then I saw the flag come out. I'm like, oh, it doesn't even matter at this point.
Yep.
But yeah.
But Iowa is the second least penalized team in terms of yards or penalties in the country, and that was huge today.
Yep. So I said 3 out of the 4. I think this is the biggest one of the day. This one right here. It was in the end of the third quarter. We have pretty much the momentum. It's 24-14. They get the ball, and it's 3rd and 10. You get off the field there. Like, I'm not saying the game is over, but like you get the ball back and you're up 24-14. Maybe you get another field goal or something, make it 27-14. But no, we let them convert. And then the next play right after that was that 50-yard bomb that they had, where I don't get how Deshaun Lee, because the ball was like in the air for a long time. Like I felt like Deshaun Lee could have like done something there. He didn't, and they end up scoring on that drive. So long story short, they had 4 drives where we had them pinned. All we had to do is get one freaking stop and we get the ball back. Because they're not going to go for it. I mean, a lot of those instances, they weren't going to go for it because they were, in our territory. So I just... the secondary.
Weird to see an Iowa defense play this way.
I don't know, because it's been like this entire year.
I know, and that's the thing. It's just like I don't recognize the same like we have the same personnel on defense. What's going on? I don't get it. We brought all these guys back, and they have regressed in a major way.
Really, the only thing that you could say was like Cooper DeJean, but Cooper DeJean also didn't play like the last 4 games. And like the Michigan game, Big Ten championship, our defense played really well without Cooper DeJean, right? He didn't play in the Nebraska
didn't give any
game.
of that up against Michigan. No.
Yep. Didn't play in the Illinois game last year. And the Tennessee game, yes, we got blown out, but once again, I remember doing a podcast over this where like the defense actually only gave up like 14 points that game. It was more Deacon Hill throwing interceptions and giving them the ball at like the 5-yard line. So,
our defense was unbelievable the last how many years?
Yep.
And we talked about this. It's almost like as soon as our offense gets a little bit better, maybe not necessarily the past game, but obviously in terms of total offense, we've damn near cut it in half, like what Tim Lester wanted to do, like what he said in the offseason. And all of a sudden our defense goes from elite to marginal at best, really.
And you knew at some point like, they were going to drop off a little bit. They're going to regress. But
not with a lot of these same guys. I did not expect this big of a drop off at all. Like disappointing.
You put like we win this game today. If you had last year's defense or the 22 defense or even the 21 defense, right? Because if you score more, I mean, they even said at the broadcast today, like we were 32 and 0 if we score more than 17 points.
21.
No, it was 17. Like, it was 17 points. We scored more than 17 points. Or was it? I don't know what it was. 17, 20. Regardless, 20 something. It's not a lot.
It was supposed to be locked. Yeah, it's supposed to be a lock, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and it's just been the kind of the story, the theme of this year with this defense, because this isn't the first rodeo, right? The Michigan State game, the UCLA game, and then sprinkle in some other instances like the Iowa State game in the second half. It just the secondary absolutely getting exposed. And the thing that I'm worried about is I feel like there's like, unless we get some portal players, like there's no hope, right? Because like none of these guys, like Deshaun Lee, he's been here now for a few years. Like I haven't seen any improvement. I haven't seen any improvement from why can't Xavier? And I was also going to say TJ Hall. Like none of these guys have really, like they've been here for, it's not like these guys are freshmen. It's not like, we're throwing them out there. This is their 5th game that they've ever started. No, like they've been playing a lot of games. Like TJ Hall was here back in 2022 because I remember him getting torched against Nebraska, but he was also a freshman that year. So it's like, okay, whatever. Now you're a junior and you're, Deshaun, and same thing with Deshaun Lee, Xavier, same thing. Quinn Schulte's done, but like all those other guys are coming back more than likely. And it's like, man, like if we don't make a splash in the portal, like how do I feel confident that the secondary is going to be better next year, especially because you're going to be playing a lot better offenses next year. You play Oregon, you play Penn State, you play at Iowa State, and Iowa State's offense with Rocco, pretty damn good. Like it's not going to get any easier. We're not playing Big Ten West teams next year. And so like, we got to like figure out the secondary. I know, we started off the episode talking about Sullivan and the quarterback. And I do think like at this, you definitely need to get another quarterback, but I'm still to the point where it's like, man, like we got to like shore up and make sure the secondary is good. And if that means landing 2 guys or how many guys you need and putting a lot of money into that basket to make sure we get that cleaned up, I'm all for it because, man, like you're not beating Penn State. You're not beating Oregon. You're not beating Iowa State on the road with a secondary like that, where you're just giving up play after play. Think about today, Missouri, how many drop balls they had. If they didn't have all those drop balls, they like every single play they were open. Like there was not one time, like, or maybe there was a few because like I think Sebastian had that nice one right before half. But like besides that,
everything was wide open. And you're exactly right. Missouri, when they didn't convert, it was because of inaccurate passes or drop balls. It was not necessarily because our defense got a pass deflection, right? Another guy, Castro, unbelievable player, seems like just hasn't really been playing well. I don't know what's going on. I am very concerned, like you said. It's so weird going into a year where I'm like scared of our defense. Like this has never been a question under Phil Parker the last 5 years. It's always been about the offense, and it probably will be a lot about the offense, but you're exactly right. I don't know what we're going to do if now we're losing Castro and
and it doesn't help that we didn't have like think if we had Jamari today, it probably would have helped a little bit, but still but Missouri was also without, their two best wide receivers. So,
Yep.
and we were still
Correct.
getting absolutely torched in the secondary.
And like the D line, again, I thought they did some good things.
Yeah.
We were able to generate some pressure, but at the same time, we allowed Brady Cook to essentially be the leading rusher for Missouri, as well as
Yeah.
when he had time to sit in the pocket, he shredded the defense. So
Yep. I mean, our rushing defense, besides him, I mean, their running back, 6 carries, 17 yards.
Yeah.
So they did a really good
Didn't do
job. But
much.
yes,
Nope.
containing Cook was not
Containing
not very good.
happen.
For me, I'm just annoyed by the way this game kind of happened because, you go into half, you're feeling so good. You're up 24-14 in the third quarter. And the way we lost that game, especially the ending with the QB sneak and all that. And it's like, I'm sitting here, it's like, why are you getting mad? It's a meaningless bowl game. But it really does. I do think these bowl games, though, really help going into like the next year, right? So, like, for example, like if we would have continued that hot streak of the offense in the second half, think about how like our mood, like going, like how much like we'd be feeling really good going into next year, right? And you can use that to maybe land a couple portal players like, hey, look at what we did in the bowl game. This is kind of what we're going to be doing moving forward. And you can kind of use that energy, that momentum, and it just seems like, man, it's all kind of flushed away for what is kind of a meaningless bowl game, but still, like, it still stings. It still sucks. And now we are 0-9. Like, think about that. 0-9 against ranked teams since 2021 when we beat Penn State. It's almost like someone placed a curse on us where it's like, okay, give us that win. I don't care what happens after this. Give us this win.
You get this win, but you lose the next 10 in a row.
Yeah.
Suck. Like, if you would have told me that, it's like,
yeah, we're 0-9 against ranked teams. I mean, that is, it really feels like this program is at like a very stale and mediocre state. I'm not saying it can't get out of it. I'm not trying to be negative here. But it really feels like that is where we're at right now. And I'm just a little worried because, once again, our schedule only gets tougher. And I just, like, I don't see a whole lot of hope in like different areas, like, right? Like the secondary that we were just talking about, the defense in general. Like, the offense, I am seeing a little hope, but then it's like, okay, well then who's going to be our quarterback, right? Like,
well, who's our quarterback? You do realize we are losing Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he had the most sensational year that I've seen in a long ass time from an Iowa running back. You don't just replace that either. Like, I know I'm excited about our running backs, Moulton, Jazzy Patterson, but I mean, that's, nobody can compare to Caleb Johnson. So it's like that's what scares me is, like, again, we talked about it at the beginning of the year, and I know it wasn't a possibility, I think, midway through the season, but this was supposed to be a team that we thought could make like the playoffs, right? This was the year to do it. Schedule, players,
everything,
everything
just came together.
And eight wins just feels like such a letdown to me.
8-5. Yeah, you can't even, like, if you would have told me back in July when we're getting kind of geared up for the season, we're feeling pretty good, right? We're feeling very optimistic that we finish off the year 8-5, lose in the Music City Bowl. I don't even know what I would say. I would be very, very, very disappointed, to say the least. Like, if you would have told me that. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, because in the moment I'm just pissed off about the game.
Hey, we're emotional, but
yeah, but I just feel it's like where do we go? Where do we go from here? Like, where's the hope at? Like, I don't know. Like, it just seems like we're just at a level right now where it's just like, man, we have dropped off so much. Like, we can't even, like, every time we were 0-9 against ranked teams, like, we can't get over that hump. And it really sucks because it felt like when we beat Penn State back in 21, right? Like, it just felt so good because it's like we finally did it. And we're finally maybe getting over that hump. And it has been just completely it's gone downhill ever since then. Not calling for Kirk's job at all, but like, he has to make some tough decisions this offseason. Got to figure out some things of, how can he get this program back to where, I'm not saying like in like this year wasn't like a joke of a year, like last year, the offense was just an embarrassment. It was a joke. Like, correct. It wasn't that, but it's like, how can we get back to just, being a team that, hey, we can, compete, right? We can go out there and we can, when we play Penn State at home next year, Oregon, like, hey, like, we have a good shot of winning this game. Like, we're not coming in and, gonna get our butts kicked, right? Yeah. So he just has a lot to think about this offseason. And I thought this was very interesting too. I wasn't going to talk about this, but since we're kind of talking about this, someone tweeted at someone today. It was after that punt that he punted on 4th and 2nd in the first half. And this was when Missouri was like, dominating on offense. So it's like, God, be aggressive here. Why are you punting the football back to them?
Give it back to him.
Someone tweeted about it and someone replied back and said, do you remember from like 2015 to 2019 pre-COVID, after like we had those really bad years and we went 12-0 2015, Kirk in that like 5-year stretch was very aggressive. Like we did fake punts. We would go for it. Remember that fake one that Sam Brinks at Penn State where they did that fake field goal to Sam Brinks? Yep. Like
that's true. That's a good point.
We called him Kirk 2.0 and like the new Kirk. And it just seems like the last few years, it's like he's kind of going back to his old ways of being hesitant and like nervous, scared of like being aggressive. And I really do that. Like that affects things and like that affects the mindset of players. Like he was being very aggressive all those years. I don't know what happened. And he's nowhere close to being that type of guy like he used to be from 2015 to 2020.
Yeah. And again, we're talking like we got to put everything into perspective. We're talking about the Music City Bowl here. I understand we want to win the game and okay, punt, but be aggressive. This is the time to do it. This is the last game of the season. Go play to win the game. How many times do we say that? And how we feel like he doesn't do that. He plays not to lose the game. And more times than not, this season specifically, we end up losing.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like we found ways to win with Deacon Hill. We went 10-2 with pathetic quarterback play. But we're seeing now that is a like once in a generation that's ever going to happen.
Our schedule was very easy.
Correct.
To set up that.
It's only getting harder. And not even like, and so you can't, I really believe like you're exactly right. Like I believe if he doesn't change his ways, if we're still going to be this just play not to lose type of team, I don't see how, because, and that's the other thing, we don't have like the elite level talent at Iowa. So if you're playing with lesser talent against teams like Oregon and USC and Penn State, and then you're also playing with a very like non-aggressive mindset, well, we're just going to get our ass kicked, I feel like, to be quite frank.
And we've seen that the last how many years against
we've seen that.
Teams.
That's not ranked teams are 0-9. So since Penn State.
Well, that will do it for this episode. I guess like we kind of touched on everything. We talked about the offense, got into the defense. I didn't want to get quite into like the offseason because I know that we'll have some episodes coming out here in the next few weeks, going over all the offseason news and things like that. And I mean, I hope we land some more portal players right now. We only have 2. Well, it's been kind of a disappointment. I mean, I shouldn't say it was like it's been a huge, because like we've been able to retain players and that's big too. We haven't really lost any key players. So you have to take that into account. But in terms of like getting players, it's not been that good. I mean, we got Hank Brown and Jonah Pace. And at this point, after watching today's game in the secondary, you need more than just those 2 guys. So hopefully we can land those. More players.
And let's get Weege a scholarship. I think he's earned his keep now.
Yep. And honestly, I mean, that kick return, but he even like had some nice catches too for us. I'm glad he's coming back. I know he's not like a huge difference maker, but in special teams he is.
In special teams,
I guess
with our offense, we need that, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So. But it's going to be a very interesting few next weeks because it's going to be quite telling to see kind of what we do with, especially at the quarterback position. Like what is our approach there? Because I like I said, I know we keep bringing it up, but one last thing, it's pretty evident that we do need to probably find a quarterback to compete against Sullivan, because you saw against UCLA that he's a little inconsistent, and you can't over a course of a full year, you can't have that happen. You can't be that inconsistent where you look good one moment and then you look completely trash the next moment, and you can't get out of that being bad. Like you can't even get back to being like yourself, right? Like bounce back. So,
and that's the biggest thing. And I know I keep bringing it up. It's like, it's like he's so far off the track. He just can't get back to just short memory. Just forget about it. Flush the interception. Go back to what we were doing in the first half. Just quick, easy completions. And he's just off, man. He's just off. I don't know. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I mean, it seems like it, but
yeah. I think it is. But well, let's hope for some better days ahead. We will end it there. We will be back. Don't know when, but like I said, probably in the next couple weeks, we'll have some episodes out. So until then, have a happy new year, everybody, and go Hawks.